Again, Mortgage Thoughts is my show. So if you're seeing me for the first time, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and give me a like. And any comments, just put them in the comments down below so we can have a conversation about anything that you want to talk about related to mortgage and or real estate. So here's the first big one. I was talking about technology. Human skills are at a premium again now that big companies are backpedaling on error-prone AI. New data shows AI job apocalypse, well, not really happening for now. And for most companies, they're not seeing the return on AI investments. This tech CEO wants to change that. So do you think there's a chance that we might have leaned on this whole AI thing a little bit too strongly? Now think about it in mortgage and real estate. AI is just this all-encompassing, just umbrella type of term that we use for everything that's going to solve our problems. Have you noticed that? Oh yeah, well hold on a second here. For our underwriting, for our automated underwriting system, we now have AI that's involved with this. We have AI that are running out conditions. We have AI that are actually talking to you right now. They're a bot on a site, and I'll tell you can't even tell it's AI. Bull. You know who can tell it's AI? My kids. My kids can look at something and they can see if it's AI or not. You know who's not really running towards the light of AI? It's younger generations. It's your 20-something-year-olds, even your 30-something-year-olds. They're not running at this and buying this hook, line, and sinker. AI to a lot of us, it doesn't feel like a self-determining, self-educating computer program. It feels like a really smart computer program that comes up with better answers to things, but nothing wildly out of what we've seen before. Yet it costs a ton of money to program. It just consumes a huge amount of energy. And for that cost, in terms of labor and in terms of energy, we're seeing larger companies right now saying, you know what, this isn't really working for us. Now, here's a couple of things that I wanted to show you that I think are pretty interesting. Right now, we're looking at a number of different demographics right now. On the left, you'll see Ellen Greenspan. Then you see Ben Bernanke. And then on the right, you see Janet. That would be Janet Yellen. And what they're talking about, and I spoke about this last week, but I think this really kind of bears repeating because I want to go through this. Who is the one is really responsible for screwing everything up that we have right now? Well, keep in mind what you're looking at between Greenspan, Bernanke, and Janet Yellen is you're looking at three of our Federal Reserve chairs in a row. And look what happened between Greenspan and Bernanke to our balance sheet, to mortgage-backed securities, to the overall debt that we're holding. Now, keep in mind the Federal Reserve is very unique. The Federal Reserve deals with trillions, not billions of dollars. Trillions, not billions of dollars. So what we're seeing here is their balance sheet. This is the buildup. What you're seeing in the red over there, that's basically mortgage-backed securities. Now, you'll notice back in January 2009, we weren't buying any mortgage-backed securities. But the beginning of 2009, January, was when the whole meltdown began, and the Fed had to fundamentally change how they did business. Now, Bernanke would say that we are suffering the ill effects of Greenspan's policies of keeping a small government and out of the way of private business. And as a result of that, private business went crazy, tanked the economy, tanked the housing market, and the Fed had to come in. And what did they do? Well, they raised their balance sheet by trillions, not billions of dollars. So is Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen, are they the cure to the Greenspan problems? Or were they the ones who precipitated this? And the only reason it's a good idea to have revisionist history, armchair quarterback type of conversations is because what we're going to do next could look a hell of a lot like this. And mind you, as I said before, we are suffering the ill effects of these policies that increase the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve to a point to where it's unsustainable right now. Here's another way of looking at it. Check this one out. Federal Reserve assets, 2003 to 15. An asset and a debt, they're almost the same type of thing, but this is the same graph. And when we look over here, again, an asset would be considered a mortgage-backed security. Somebody who's buying MBSs. Well, the Fed's buying all the mortgage-backed securities. Is this good for them or is this bad for them? Is this a liability or is this an asset? Well, an MBS that's performing, I guess, would be an asset, but it could also be viewed as a liability. Another thing that we have to see here is look at the blue, the discount lending. Look at the miscellaneous fees. Look at emergency lending. Look at treasuries. These numbers are absolutely massive. So the balance sheet isn't just run by mortgage-backed securities, but obviously it's a huge, huge part of it. Now, the thing is we started, you'll see our increase here. This is going back to December 2008, where we were kind of on 2009, but this is roughly, it's following the same graph, isn't it? I want to show you something. This is the one that we talked about before. This is unrealized gains and losses on investment securities, held to maturity securities, available for sale securities. Look at how investment securities gains and losses, look at the unrealized losses, and look at how we basically had nothing, and then we see this massive, massive jump. Look at this massive, massive jump before nothing. massive jump in unrealized gains or investment securities. Unrealized means they haven't made anything off them, right? And then all of a sudden, you see the Federal Reserve dumping money into different areas to keep banks afloat, to keep mortgage companies afloat. But look at the absolutely extraordinary numbers in how what's taking place with banks is tracking what's taking place with the Federal Reserve assets. Now, this is debt balances and its composition. Here's all the debt that we have. Now, down here in the gold, this is mortgage debt. Then we have revolving security debt. Then we have car payment debt. Then we have other debt. But right now, we're sitting at $18.339 trillion in debt. And by the way, the $1.85 trillion in debt that we're holding right now, there's a big belief that this is not going to perform. In short, this is going to look a lot like that. Unrealized gains on investment securities, it's not going to perform. Trump urges Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to boost home building. Now, this is kind of interesting because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they don't build homes. Before I became president, OPEC kept oil prices high. It wasn't right for them to do that, but in a different form is being done, this time by big home builders of our nation. They are my friends, and they're very important to the success of our country, but now they can get financing, and they have to start building homes. They're sitting on 2 million empty lots. It's a record number. I'm asking Fannie and Freddie to get big home builders to go and do so by helping restore the American dream of building more homes. But here's the question I have for you, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. If we go ahead and build 2 million houses right now in the country, is it going to make a massive difference in payments? And the answer is maybe it will. But if it does so, if it makes a massive difference in payments, it's ultimately going to come at the form of lower interest rates and higher sales prices. And that's only going to be a temporary fix. When we go out there and buy mortgage-backed securities and we drive rates down to at or below zero with a prime rate, or we go out there, the Federal Reserve raises their balance sheet to go buy every mortgage-backed security in the country out there, yeah, that's going to drive rates down, but what's going to happen in the long term? The long term is we create an unsustainable market. And this, by the way, is an extension of that. And frankly, I see this as being a little misled. So right now, yes, the Fed is doing things to go ahead and lower mortgage interest rates and to lower interest rates for builders to go out and borrow money against building new subdivisions. But if new home builders are going to go out and build new subdivisions and they know that they're going to take a bath on that, are they going to build them? There are 72% more condo sellers than buyers in the United States right now. Do the math on that one. And look at this graph. Now, why did we have more sellers than buyers? Well, we're staring at COVID, aren't we? That big spike is COVID. And we can always just take COVID as an anomaly and throw it off the map. And if you look back down to 2013 with the number of condos that we have on the market, what goes up? What happens with these things? Is this going to be the canary in the coal mine for us? Because you see condo prices already starting to come down. Some of those 75% of sellers are starting to come off their price. And when one comes off their price, that entire condo complex, every single sales price on that property is going to be too high. When one person in a complex says, you know what, I need to sell my house more importantly than I need to get every penny out of it, and they sell this thing 20% below what is deemed to be market value, congratulations, everybody else in that complex. You just took a 20% bath on that property. And we're starting to see this happening. It's a cascade effect. And this cascade effect, the other area where you wouldn't think you would see it happening is with new homes. Well, why is this taking place? Well, we have high costs. Why are people buying right now? High costs, near record prices on mortgage rates. That's keeping people from buying. New condo rules and regulations. When it comes to condos, people like the new rules and regulations. We're seeing this a lot down in Florida. Frankly, we're seeing it a lot in the Southeast where it's affecting their HOA dues. Their HOAs, remember, they have to go get insurance policies as well, so that's going to make it to your HOA fees. Florida, the Sunshine State, has about 1.5 million condos. By some estimates, that's about 1/5 of the nation's condos. Among the 50 biggest U.S. metro areas, 5 of the 10 biggest are down in Florida, and Florida has a massive problem, a structural problem with all their condos. And if you haven't been following this story for the past couple of years, yeah, people are leaving. They're leaving in droves. And finally, I just heard this one recently, and it just warmed my heart. Real estate agents are starting to walk away from Zillow. They don't want their properties on Zillow anymore. So what do they say here? Estimates are flawed, something we've been telling you now for the better part of 2 decades. They say they could be off by as high as 7.9%. And right now, when we see markets that are dropping a ton, I'll tell you this, Zillow is doing a wild disservice for the housing market. Because if they're 10% higher on a property than what that property is actually worth, where do you think that seller is going to figure out what the house is worth? Estimates are off. Data is lagging. Your MLS is always going to be faster than Zillow because Zillow has to go through you in order to get their information. So there is going to be some type of stagnation. Lack of nuance. The algorithm cannot accurately or properly a property's unique features like recent renovations, lot desirability, nor can it understand hyperlocal market trends that human agents possess. Isn't that the truth? Everything has to go into an algorithm. And finally, data ship ownership and misleading buyers. Agents may receive inquiries for properties that are already sold or not on the market due to Zillow's inaccurate information, wasting the time of both buyers and sellers. Boy, have I gone through this one before. Is the house still available? Is the property pending? Is the realtor going to take backups? Do they like the offer that they have in place? All of these things we're going to lose control of when you list your property with Zillow. So my friends, realtors, do yourself a favor. Keep more money in your pocket. Work with your local lender and lenders. Do not feed the beast. Quit paying real estate agents for their Zillow accounts. Okay, my last point, final point. Why? Now, again, so we started with a lot of conflict on here, and I wanted to speak about some resolution. Resolution is young people will work with you. Resolution is you don't need to spend the rest of your life and all of your finances on AI. Loan purpose trends, cash out refinance volume jumped 26.5%. Rate and term refinances up 12.5%. Rate and term refinances, guys, they're getting lower rates on their non-QM deals. They're doing a rate and term refinance to the tune of 12.5%. That should tell you something about the direction rates are. And my friends over at Angel Oak, they have great rates. Purchase activity was essentially flat, no big deal because it's down for everybody else, but flat for them, reflecting the ongoing affordability challenges. All right, property type, single family share climbed 4.62% year over, 63.5% year over. Non-QM is blowing up. PUDs, they fell 4.23% over the same period of time. But I'd be willing to bet you this. I think PUD numbers are down all over the board. People are looking for ways to offload costs, not onload costs. And a PUD, by definition, is a house where you're going to have to pay more for it. Pull-through rate, purchase pull-through improved to 80.0%, up 2.32% year over, reflecting stronger closing efficiencies. And refinance pull-through dipped slightly to 0.4% to 61%. It's par for the course. So if you want to talk about non-QM, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Brian Stevens. My phone number should be all over the place here. Leave me a comment down below. Be more to answer or point you in the right direction where you need to go with some of your transactions. And I might just have to ask the same of you.